Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello and welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Gennari. Today we are speaking with Courtney Lorenz. Thank you so much for joining us, Courtney.
Angela, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for welcoming me on the show.
Absolutely. So Courtney has a great wellness background that I'm really excited to share with you guys because I think she's going to bring so much value to our lives today. So Courtney is the founder of Northern Michigan's first kombucha tea brewery. Courtney desires to share the health benefits reaped from living foods. She believes that each body has unique nutritional needs. Courtney is a lifelong food and beverage entrepreneur who creates value in the health and wellness industry. Her background in nutrition and culinary arts fosters wellness within the community through education, agronomy. Okay, there's where we get messed up. Okay, agronomy and functional nutrition. Courtney has supported multiple businesses through their growth phases and enjoys supporting her business through its own growth. Courtney is a certified culinarian through the American Culinary Federation, a Reiki master, a certified mediation facilitator, and NASM nutritionist. She has been published in Forbes, received 40 Under 40 awards, 3 by the age of 30, and is a Great Lakes Culinary Institute's Alumni of the Year 2019. Courtney holds multiple businesses, with her most current holding a top 3 nomination for Small Business of the Year in Traverse City, Michigan. Courtney volunteers on 4 community board organizations centered on health and wellness and enjoys life outside with her dog. I love it. You are so exactly what we all aspire to be in terms of just the awareness of how important health is in our daily lives. And I'm just excited to dive into this with you.
Yeah, and as women, I think it's even more centric because we're taught to take care of everyone else first.
Yes.
So I think there's so many important topics we get to cover today.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So I want to know first, what got you started in the health and wellness industry?
Yeah. How did I start fermenting tea for a living?
Yes.
Yeah. So a little bit of back history. I went to culinary school first. Young 18-year-old Courtney thought she wanted to be a pastry chef.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was cool. I really enjoyed my time doing it. So I went to culinary school, graduated, worked as a pastry chef for many years. Now my minor when I was in culinary school was nutrition though. Okay. So it was something very early on, knew that there was a curiosity there. Okay. And then after that, I worked around for a little bit and decided to go back to school to study to be a dietitian. After getting my degree, I really found my passion in the fact that people were so disassociated from their food choices.
Yes.
Yeah. Right?
Yes. I find myself doing
hamburger.
That. Yeah, exactly. Well, and we're eating out of convenience, right? I think that's part of it. It's well, what do I have? What can I get on the go? What's convenient? What's easy? And especially if you travel, I used to travel a lot, and I was the heaviest I ever was when I was traveling because of that, because you're just looking for cheap, easy, and accessible and
on the go. It's mindless eating, and that's when we get into dangerous territory, when we're not eating mindfully and taking the time to really slow down and enjoy it. And it actually affects our entire digestive system, which is a whole nother topic that I could put up for a long time. Yeah. But people didn't understand cow is hamburger and Brussels sprouts grow on a stalk, right? It's we eat to live. How do we not know these things?
Yeah,
right. It's really important. And so I found that my passion was really to teach people how food affects their bodies. How does food affect your wellness? And I was offered a job out of college at a Fortune 50. Salary, benefits. If they could have sold a white picket fence with it, it would have made sense. Right. It's everything a parent could want for their kid, and so I did it. at 24 years old, I was managing a team of like 20 plus people.
Wow.
Yeah, so great opportunity, right? But I knew I didn't agree ethically with the company and what they
Yeah.
made and what they did. So the hippie culinary kid inside me still volunteered on a farm on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the
Absolutely.
weekends.
Hmm.
It made me feel like it connected me back to my value system.
Yeah.
And one day the farmer didn't have enough produce to pay me in, so she paid me in a kombucha culture.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so I went home and I started brewing and made 5 gallons and I couldn't quite drink it all myself. So I shared it with friends and family and traded it for eggs or for a Reiki session. And eventually I said, this is making me happy and healthy.
Mhm.
And kombucha could be the vessel for me to help other people be happy and healthy. So I quit my job and I started Cultured Kombucha.
Wow, that's amazing. So, okay, so kombucha is a bit of acquired taste. I've
Yeah.
tried it before and
Yeah.
it's all depending on the maker, it really all depends on the brand and what they're doing to it. And so I have found that there are some that are better than others, as I'm
Oh, yeah.
sure in anything, right? That's the case. So what makes kombucha so healthy?
Yeah, no, great question. Because kombucha is kind of like this redheaded stepchild in the industry. People don't really know what to do with it yet, right?
Yeah.
So some background info. Kombucha is a tea that's fermented for health instead of alcohol. So
Okay.
when we're fermenting for health, think like yogurt or sourdough
Mm,
bread. For listeners who might not be sure what that's like, it's going to be a little bit tart, a little bit
okay.
sweet, and a little bit bubbly. Um, and during that fermentation process, you produce these incredible health benefits like probiotics, live cultures, digestive enzymes, amino acids. Um, so when we go through our day to day, when we experience stress, when we take medications, when we experience environmental pollutants,
Hmm.
when we eat things that maybe we probably shouldn't,
Hmm.
the bacteria in our body can ebb and flow and sway. And kombucha gives us the good bacteria we need to lead a healthy life.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there a right time to drink kombucha? Like, is it
Mhm.
after a meal? Is it in the morning? Is there a right time or not really?
I think that's dependent on the person. And one of my
Hmm.
favorite educational pieces about kombucha is it really teaches you to listen to your body too, in that
Okay.
sense, right? And to tune into
Yeah.
yourself. I love it on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. It kind of wakes my stomach up
Hmm.
and makes me kickstarts my digestive process and warms up my body per se. Before and after meals is great for digestive support.
Okay.
Um, some people like it in the afternoon instead of an afternoon coffee as a pick me up as well.
Okay. Is there like a limit of how much kombucha you should have, or is it just kind of as much as you want?
That's a good question as well, and a frequently asked one. Um, I haven't experienced too much kombucha yet.
Uh-huh.
It's considered medical advice if we tell you how much to drink. But that
Right.
being said, I've never heard of someone drinking too much. I
Okay.
think a lot of people kind of think of it as a supplement, and we like to think of it as an addition to a healthy lifestyle. So if you're going to
Okay.
have a Diet Coke, swap it
Mm.
for a kombucha. If you're trying not to drink at night at home, swap your beer out for a kombucha, right? Like all
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
all these little things.
Okay. I like that. Great advice.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me when you come into the world of kombucha and you decide you're going to start brewing your own, what kind of process do you need to go through to make that a business and a viable business at that? Because this is a space where I imagine it's pretty tough to get shelf space at grocery stores.
Yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely. CPG or for consumer packaged goods
Uh-huh.
is a cutthroat
And
industry.
you're going up against some pretty big companies in that space too.
Yeah,
So as
totally.
a small business, how do you strategize? What does your marketing look like?
Mm. Well, for the first couple of years, it was definitely fake it till you make it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So we were a bootstrap business by all means to start.
Right.
Um, and so, I think a lot of it was, in that bootstrap mentality, it was all grassroots marketing.
Yeah.
So we attended 8 to 10 farmers markets a week, because
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah.
We knew that by staffing those farmers markets, we could touch 4,000 people in 3 hours versus going to a supermarket shelf and trying to talk to people in hopes that they're coming through. So we
Yeah.
took the most strategic approaches possible to get as many touches per advertising opportunity as possible.
Okay. That's great.
But it's the competition is real. We're not only competing against like smaller brands, but we're also competing against Coke and Pepsi with a small business budget,
Yeah, I know the feeling there. Yeah, we talked real brief about, my business, and in my business, we're in a weird category because we're technically a small business. We're, revenue wise, staff wise, our executive team is pretty small, but we're competing against huge nationwide companies who have these tremendous budgets and, resources that we couldn't even dream of. And so, but we can't appear like a small business in this space, as you know, the last thing you want to do is show up and say, hey, look at me. I'm just this teeny tiny little business over here trying to make it. So how do you, what were your struggles in starting the business? What were your biggest hurdles in terms of like trying to get this off the ground?
Yeah, well, we definitely had to start with the differentiation aspect, just like you're showing up and trying to compete with the big dogs in the security industry. We had to show up and say, not only Coke and Pepsi, but in the brewing industry too, because we want their customers, right? How do we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace? And there's a really great book out there called The Zingerman's Acts of Great Service, I believe, that I listened to that I'd highly recommend for your listeners as well. No one's in a unique industry, and that's what the business talks about. And so it's your service that sets you apart. I can tell you that my kombucha tastes great. I can tell you that it has the best health benefits, but the reality is I am one of who knows how many rainbow kombuchas on the shelf.
Right.
Yeah. And so what's really going to drive our customers back to us every single time as we're building our business is our service model. And so we had to figure out how to establish a service model as a good that doesn't ever actually talk to a customer.
Yeah, interesting.
How do we establish that and tell our story and provide excellent service from a store shelf?
Yeah.
And so that's some of the stuff we've been focusing on. We had very limited resources to start with. I started the business with $248.
Ooh, yeah.
That's all I had at 23 years old.
That's great though. Wow. All right. Yeah. So how do you start, how do you get a logo designed? How do you, get marketing materials put together? Because I mean, I've been there, so I know what we did, but I'm curious about your story because that's fascinating to me because you're in an industry, like we were just talking about, where it's hard to break in.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the barriers to entry are insane, right? Not only do you have collateral, like you're talking about for branding, you talk about the capital expense for the equipment to make it, talk about finding a building and getting a food license. So we started with 3 5-gallon buckets and went to our first farmer's market, but and we sold out. And so we knew we were viable and supported, and we went in and continued reinvesting in ourselves. But prior to that, I guess a little bit of a backup. I asked a friend to describe our brand.
Yeah.
Give me 3 words that you think describe our brand. And they came back to me with organic, healthy. Okay. And the last word they used was scrappy. I was so offended. I was like, I don't want to look scrappy. I don't want to look like I know what I'm doing. But then I thought about it and I sat with it and I was like, in a really weird way, it's a compliment.
Yeah, it is.
Because it means we're going to be successful and we're going to figure it out.
Yes.
And that was, I think, what they were trying to convey. But when I say that we started with a scrappy standpoint, we did logo design. I went to my local college and their graphic design students needed a semester project. Our logo was their semester project.
Oh, that's fantastic. What a great idea. Okay, very cool.
We used every single resource we could to start, our local SPDC office for demographic studies, our local SCORE chapter for general advisement, pitch competitions, social media, college students, you name it. We tried it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and now how do you sell your product now? What's the distribution look like?
Mm-hmm. So exciting news. As of this week, we've actually doubled our retail footprint in the state of Michigan.
Congratulations. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So we had a really incredible opportunity with a local supermarket, Midwest supermarket, I should say. I should give them more credit than that. And they actually doubled the size of our footprint by bringing us in. So we went from about 200 stores to 400 stores in less than 6 weeks' time.
Wow. That's incredible. And so were you having any moment of like, OMG, how am I going to make this happen?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Or were you just like, yeah, cool, we got this?
Yeah. I knew that we could do it. I knew that we hadn't not done it before.
Yeah.
So I went to the team and I was like, okay, deliver it, deliver the news, get excited, don't let them freak out.
Yeah.
And so I told them and they were all excited and we were like, we're going to take 1 week to celebrate this win. And then we can get nervous, but make sure we fully celebrate the first win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's fantastic. Yeah. And is this something you can buy online? Is there like how do you have to ship this? Do you have to have it cold when you ship it?
Yeah. So kombucha is a refrigerated product. If you live in the state of Michigan, you can find it relatively easily. We are working on launching an online drop shipping program in the next 3 months.
Very cool. All right. And then you'd have to send that some kind of, in a chilled packaging, I'd assume. Yeah.
Yeah. Very similar to how you get your meal kits delivered. The kombucha would be able to be drop shipped to you. Very
cool. Wow. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about some of the inspiration that you found along the way. Who inspires you in this process?
That's a great question. I think as entrepreneurs, and especially as women entrepreneurs, we're prone to burnout a lot, right? And so finding those continuous sources of inspiration and motivation are critical to kind of propelling ourselves forward. I've taken inspiration from a lot of places, as I've started. When I first started out, I think it was a lot of grit and just young determination. At the young age, it was like you want to see me fail? Watch me not.
Yep, I've been there. Yeah. Absolutely.
But that's fueled by anger and that does not last. And so it eventually goes away. I've had a lot of really strong female entrepreneurs in my life as well.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. That's really essential because, I feel like we don't have a lot of those innately. I just don't feel like we tend to see a lot of other female entrepreneurs. And so we kind of, feel like we're doing this alone. So that's awesome.
I like to think it's in my genes. My grandmother actually, she started a franchise in the 50s and 60s of sewing stores, of tailor shops.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, to have that kind of inspiration in the background is great. I think one of my other sources of inspiration is really just forcing myself to be in situations that make me feel small.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people will say, like nature and water, and absolutely those are like key, right? But I find that if I don't put myself in situations, going to a bigger city, going to places where ideas and people are stronger and smarter and farther ahead than I am, then I start to kind of pull back on my inspiration a little bit, right? So for me, my inspiration comes from being in situations that make me feel small.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like the way that you phrase that because, I heard the advice recently, work the job you want, not the job you have, right? And so that means that you're out there doing what you want to do when you've reached that next level. You're doing it now so that you can prepare for that next level. And so you want to work the job you want, not the job you have. So you're bringing your A game constantly. You're not just biding time until you get there.
Yeah.
But
it's like,
go ahead.
The concept of if you're not like 5 minutes early or behind, that applies to your career too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always felt like jumping in before I'm ready always levels me up. If I feel like if I feel like I'm around people that are at the same level as me, I don't find as much inspiration from them. Like I joined a CEO group not long ago.
Cool.
And at the time, for probably a year or two before I joined, I knew about this group. And I had looked at other kind of entrepreneurs groups and so forth, but this one group just seemed so far out of my league. And so
That's your
was
group.
I was really intimidated at first, but then I finally said, you know what? I'm not going to learn if I don't put myself out there. And so my pitch to them, because this is a group that's kind of an invite only, they don't really just take applications. You kind of have to be kind of brought into the group. Yeah. So, but my pitch was, listen, I know I can add value to this group. I haven't figured out how yet. I know I'll learn from them, but I also know I can teach as well. And so that was the value. The value was, okay, you know what? If you think you can add value, not just take it, then go for it. And so I had to find the way I could add value. And so every single meeting I'm in there, I try to look for the way I can add value.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective to have. And knowing that the personal challenges even gave you to step into that and saying, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure it out, right? Like that's the power. And that's what truly levels you up. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur is that, we have so many gut check moments. And it's really nice to be around other entrepreneurs who have felt that or been there or, kind of can talk you off a cliff every once in a while. It's
the peer-to-peer experience. Totally.
It really is.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think when they say it's lonely at the top, it's not lonely. It's the ability it's the unrelatability, right?
Yep.
Or the lack of camaraderie, it's just different. It's not bad or good. It's different,
right?
And it's uncomfortable a lot. And so having people that can share in that mutual discomfort, oh gosh, that's a blessing. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I could not agree more. So tell me a little bit more about when you started your business. What advice would you give to other people who are starting a business, grassroots, bootstrapping, getting it together, as an entrepreneur, what advice would you give to others who are in the same situation, who are sitting back saying, I have a really good idea, but I don't have any money and I don't have the right resources and I don't have the right backing. What would you say to them?
Everyone can access resources. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
The resources look different for each situation. Put the ego aside. Forget the fear, because your body's going to tell you not to do it every single way possible. That gut check is going to hit you over and over and over and over again. Yep. You can't listen to it. You have to keep going. Yep. So I don't know how crass I can be on the show, but one of the fuck your fears, like seriously, just go for it, right?
Yeah.
Say fuck you to your fears and keep going. Yep. And the reality is, just like you said, as you take those risks and as you put yourself in those uncomfortable situations, that's when your surroundings change. And generally speaking, most of what you need will find you.
Yeah.
If you seek your goal, it's going to find you, right?
Yeah.
If you're taking the risk, the reward is usually right on the other side, and moving forward without fear is what brings that to you. It's a little cheesy and a little philosophical, and I can say, go find your local score mentor, and go get a line of credit. But the reality is, you've got to have the will to make it happen first.
Yeah. And you have to have that tenacity of saying, like, hey, I have to be able to be turned down multiple times, because you're going to be turned down multiple times. And if you don't have that tenacity to keep going, there's going to be lots of moments where you're like, man, I really screwed that up. I could have done that differently, know, but at the same time, you have to forgive yourself and move on quickly. What's the mantra, fail fast, like you're going to fail, just fail fast to get back up and go.
Yeah. It's a 2-minute drill, right? A lot of the opportunities can slow you down for days at a time, or even months at a time as an entrepreneur, if you take them to heart, right? The rejection it's brutal.
Yeah.
Because no matter what you do, even if it is a business, in a sense, it is personal too. And so you're getting no's on both those fronts. And one thing I had to do, because I take things so personally, whether it be a nasty gram email, a
Yeah.
complaint about a bottle not being labeled perfectly, like just the stupidest small things I take personally. And so I had to have that. It's a 2-minute rule. You can be happy for 2 minutes. You can celebrate for 2 minutes. You can scream for 2 minutes. But whatever it is, it's 2 minutes and you move on.
Yeah, I like that. That's great
Yeah.
advice, because honestly, I think we can dwell in that, right? We can dwell on it and let it eat us alive. And eventually that can become, our thoughts move into what becomes our reality, right? So you've thought yourself into failure. And so you have to get past it. You have to get past it. Yeah.
You create that reality. I had a big one in the last month. We had an opportunity for an investment come on the table, and I've been a sole proprietor the whole time. And I was excited for it. It had some pretty cool opportunities with it. Could have provided me with a pretty good exit plan. My body told me 3/4 of the way through it wasn't the right deal. We got through negotiations and something was like, something isn't right. And I said, I'm sorry, this isn't right for me and my business at this time. And I walked away. And then I had to kick that 2-minute rule in. I had to say, I can mourn this.
Yeah.
I can be sad about this opportunity, but I can't dwell on it because that's going to slow my business down.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's awesome. So what happens when you start getting investor inquiries and stuff like that? Is that something that, how do you differentiate it's time or it's not time, right? So what was that moment of saying it's just not the right time?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've been approached by a few of them over the years, and the business has been at different phases throughout. And I think the simplest way I can answer that thought is, if I look back at the first deal and I would have taken it, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Yeah.
And I'm still doing it, and I still own this whole puppy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so even when I think I can't do it, and I have those oh shit moments, the reality is I'm gonna figure it out. Yeah. I don't know how. Yeah. But it's gonna happen because we're not gonna fail.
Right. Exactly. Just that mindset of I'm not failing. It's going to be hard. It's going to hurt a little, it's going to make me feel bad sometimes, but I will get there. I will figure this out. Yeah, absolutely.
And if I'm coming to a point where there is a pain point and I'm considering investment, that likely means it's time for a transition somewhere internally anyways, right? So as I'm evaluating these friction points that we're coming up against in a business, whether it be labor or new market entry or equipment based, if I'm going to navigate this friction, what are the pros and cons of the investment versus me figuring out a way to do it, right? And I've always found that I can still do it. I'm comfortable with my business's growth rate. And if I took a larger investor and gave up majority, I could probably go nationwide.
Yeah.
But that's not what I see for the business. And so I think it's also been evaluating what makes me true to my ethos for the business too.
Yeah. We've had those moments as well. And I'm with you. It just, it just didn't feel right. And a few times where I've gotten into like a money crunch or like, I know there's a great growth opportunity, but I'm going to need to take on investments to do it. I would back away because at the end of the day, even though, and I'll be honest, a lot of the times when I've considered investments, it wasn't necessarily for the money. It was, I need the expertise. I need somebody to tell me what to do. Somebody come in and tell me what to do, please. Cause I feel like I'm just going to mess it up. Right.
Interesting.
And but at the end of the day, I looked at the options on the table and I've talked to people and they said, an investor might come in and they might tell you what to do, but it may not be in alignment with your values. It's going to be in alignment with their bookkeeping, with what they want with revenue, but not necessarily with your values. So if you want something to go along with your values, you figure it out and you make it happen. And so I've backed away each time for that exact reason. Just like you were saying, it wasn't the right alignment with my values. It wasn't the right what I want for the company and what I want for our image and our brand and our employees and our clients. So so backing away was the best thing. And even though I felt like I was drowning in a pool of uncertainty, it was I was like, please, somebody just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. And ultimately I didn't want them to tell me what to do. I wanted them to tell me what I was doing was right.
Yeah. Affirmation. You were seeking affirmation in a sense, right?
Not necessarily, guidance, but affirmation of just tell me I'm not screwing this all up.
Well, and it's almost like there's a theme of, potentially triggering investments, and they seem to correlate back to our self-worth in our business and the imposter syndrome, right?
Yes.
Do I actually know what I'm doing? Am I worth this? Like when you question our ability, we're really questioning our self-worth.
Yeah.
We started the business. We see how it happens. We know how the cogs weave together. We can hire experts, but we do know the general idea pretty well, or else we wouldn't excel in our industry.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
Yep. The gut instinct is true. And so how did you feel like you recognized when your gut instinct was telling you it was not the right time?
Because I envision the future with the investors or not. And so I kind of look down the road and I look at, okay, this is great for now. It'll get us through this little hurdle, but big picture. And I look at, what does 5 years from now look like? And it's like, well, our brand is kind of, it's not where it should be. The standards may not be there. The growth happened too fast. It wasn't, it wasn't good for our brand and our reputation. And so, I look at what our competitors have done and I see them as the brand is diluted. The quality standards are down and I don't want to be there. And so I look at, everybody's like, well, you could be, I can't believe you're only this big. Why aren't you guys bigger? Why don't you expand more? Why don't you do this? And I'm like, because look at our competitors. That's the path I don't want to travel, right? Like I don't want that. I think our customers deserve better, and so do our employees. So
you're going back to the service aspect, which is even better. Yeah. I love it. That's awesome.
So tell me a little bit. So when you talk about health, I want to kind of pivot to health because I think that's just such a critical topic that we're not discussing enough right now, whether it's mental health or physical health. We're just not discussing it enough. So when we're talking about our physical health, what are 3 things we should stop doing immediately?
Ooh, physical health. Okay. There's so many.
I know. Well, and I'm really, I'm thinking about like the diet version, and I'll tell you, I've actually started rethinking how I being more intentional about food. I'm intentional about every single thing in my life. I am like as purposeful as you can imagine. I have a time and a place, and nearly obsessive about everything. But when it comes to food, I'm not. And that's where I'm like, okay, I'm reeling it in. I'm reeling this in. I've cut out processed food. I've cut out sugar for the most part. Alcohol. I've had, just like, oh, I'll drink a glass of wine while I'm making dinner. And then I'm mindlessly taking in calories, and so now it's like, nope, that doesn't happen anymore either. So, things like that. So mindless is where I get stuck.
Yeah. No, that is a great starting point. I think coming back and being mindful about your eating is key. Our generation is experiencing more digestive issues than any prior generation. Absolutely. If you look at gastric reflux, if you look at IBD, if you look at Crohn's disease, SIBO, Candida, all of these, they're flippant in our generation in ways they've never been before. And a lot of that is because we are eating in the car and we are eating on the go and we are shoveling things into our desk in between meetings while we quickly answer someone's email, and our bodies are not made to do that. So as we prepare to eat and as we mindfully eat, our body actually goes through a process where it actually gets ready for digestion. So you secrete enzymes in your saliva to better help you break down food. Your stomach juices prepare for it as well. So not a very sexy thing to talk about, but slowing down to be present with your food, shutting your laptop, making sure you don't eat with a screen, and slowing down while you eat can cure like half of people's digestive ailments.
Well, that's exactly how I don't eat. So
I don't either. I'm not perfect by any means. I can shovel in between meetings like the best of them.
Right. Well, and I'm usually sitting in front of my laptop shooting out emails while I'm trying to, eat breakfast in the morning or something.
Totally. It's cultural now.
It really is. You feel like you have to multitask. And that includes even when you're eating, like you have to be multitasking at all times to get everything done.
Which is so odd, isn't it? Right? Like enjoying
Yes.
food.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, so slowing down, chewing all of the way, and making sure we eat mindfully is definitely number one.
Okay.
Um, I would say, number two is we actually probably don't drink nearly as much water as we think we do. So documenting your water intake, key.
Yep.
Bare minimum, get the gallon in. Water and sleep pair together quite well. I can't imagine a generation that is undervaluing sleep more.
Yeah.
Average between 5 and 7 hours a night.
Yeah.
7 should be our bare minimum to function cognitively as humans, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Easier said than done, schedules, kids, life,
Mhm.
business, everything's always got to get done. It's no joke. But making sure that we do the basics of taking care of ourselves can go a long way.
Absolutely.
I think my last bit of advice would be, making sure we're swapping out dead food for living food.
Yeah. So that's part of kombucha, right? It's living food. What does that mean?
Yeah. So you're a living body, right? You're formed of these trillions upon trillions of cells that are all coming together to make up a human body. Living food is the idea that you're putting in food that can do good for your body, that can restore it as a living function. So when we go to the grocery store, are we choosing food that has been alive or been alive recently? Or are we talking about something that can survive like the next apocalypse, right? The protein bar might have really, really good macros and it might fit in your diet for the rest of the day. So you can make, whatever weight you want to make for the week. It might hit your macros, but it's also not hitting anything good inside your body outside of that.
Yes.
So are we taking consideration for what we're putting in our body in terms of it being a living food? Generally speaking, if your grandmother doesn't know it as an ingredient, if it's something that can survive indefinitely, like don't eat it.
Yeah.
Seriously. Done. But making sure your food comes out of the ground with dirt on it, making that connection to your local farmer, that's going to get your microbiome in place. Eating living foods, sauerkraut, yogurt, kimchi, kombucha, repopulating your body. Those are all going to do incredible wonders.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's fantastic. I totally agree with you. I feel like, I've been going through a purging lately of just things in my pantry and, things that are just not good for you. Like I shouldn't have that much in my pantry. It should all be in my refrigerator, right? Like I shouldn't have that much in my pantry. So, but yeah, I've been purging a lot lately and just saying, you know what, it's unnecessary. Just get rid of it and don't rebuy it.
Yeah. But you're human too, right? And we're all busy and we all have lives. And so, understanding that finding a balance is pretty good too.
Yeah, exactly. That's great advice. So I'm going to ask you a question that I ask on every podcast because I really think it's so essential for us as women to understand this. So as women, we give away our power all the time. Like we give other people credit for what we do. We allow them to criticize us unnecessarily and we take it. And so we give away our power on a pretty frequent basis because we always feel like we value ourselves less than what we value others. Yeah. So tell me about a time that you gave away your power, and then tell me about a time that you stepped into your power and kind of what that difference was.
Great question. I think I've given away my power many a times as a woman. And it's kind of hard to just choose one.
Yeah, I know.
I think
sad, isn't it?
It is. And I think a lot of it was actually subconscious when I was younger and conditional on societal conditioning and probably some ways of being raised. I think I chose not to be seen a lot. I was afraid to be seen. And I also was, and still am, a work in progress, a master deflector of compliments.
Oh, yeah.
You want to compliment me? I will pivot that. Oh, you did a great job too. Oh, way to go. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without you.
You're right.
Like, give me a compliment, watch me flip that sucker right around.
Yeah.
And so one of my biggest things has just been learning to receive. I think as women we're taught to give. And so learning to receive has been incredibly challenging. And so when I receive compliments, my goal is just to say thank you and to not receive it with discomfort. And to accept like, yeah, I did do a good job, and I can take sole credit for that. So that's been a challenging one to work through.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing because you've been getting all these amazing awards with 40 Under 40 and Small Business of the Year and all of these incredible accolades. And, they don't come from nowhere. These are well deserved. You're up against other entrepreneurs. You're well vetted in these processes. Mm-hmm. So congratulations on all of those. So, but yes, so see, thank you.
I'm getting there.
You're doing great. So, but yeah, so I think that is a challenge, I think, as women, because we want to give credit to everyone else. We don't want to have to step into that. So tell me about when you stepped into your power.
Yeah, honestly, saying no to the investment deal recently was a huge way of stepping into my own power.
Yeah.
The investment deal had great opportunities within it. I was being mansplained left and right in the negotiation process. It would have been a partnership with me and 3 other men, and I was I was being treated like I wanted a business daddy. And so while the offer was I could have found a way to make it, work for the business. I knew that wasn't an environment that was going to help me grow and thrive. And I knew that I would have felt stifled and I would have felt muted. And if I'm working on being seen and heard, that wasn't going to be the opportunity for me to actually grow.
Oh, I love it. That's so good. So good.
Heck of a trial on that one. Obviously, but it truly, I knew I wasn't going to grow as an entrepreneur in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, bravo. Good for you for recognizing that and stepping into your power and saying, no, this isn't for me, and just instead of just taking what they're willing to give you and, knowing that you would not come through that process better than you came into it. That's a big indicator, right? Like I want to come out of anything better than I was going in. So
absolutely. Yeah, you can find, financial support anywhere, but if it's not going to help me or the business grow, it's not worth it.
Fantastic. I love it. So what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Oh, young little 18-year-old Courtney.
Courtney going into being a pastry chef.
Yeah, so young and naive and delightfully innocent. Stop being so afraid to be seen.
Yeah.
Step into your self-worth unapologetically. I used achievement for so many years of my life to validate my worth.
Yeah.
The award stack is probably a prior portion of that, although fun and enjoyable. I was an overachiever in college as well. I'd take 24 credit hours to get done early. And that was all because I was seeking things through achievement instead of just accepting my self-worth and stepping into that and being seen for who I was.
Yeah.
So my advice to young Courtney would be, step into the self-worth and don't be afraid to be seen.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, because you're right. I mean, going after all those achievements basically just says my self-worth is whatever you value it at. Right. Totally. So yeah, I know. And then, but having that inner confidence is so hard. It's so hard. It is really challenging, but good for you for recognizing that. And, but yeah, the achievements feel good, but again, we're putting our self-worth in somebody else's hands. If you don't win, that's
it's a short-term game, right? When you can truly find that self-confidence inside, knowing that it comes from your own self-worth, that's when it really shines. It's different. It just shows different.
So you've got this great successful kombucha business and you are thriving and you're growing as an entrepreneur and you're kind of making your own way. And I love that you've gone past where the investors are and you're like, no, I've got this. I'm going to figure this out. And, here you are. And, just the sky's the limit, this incredible success, doubling your footprint. And so now what? I mean, what's next for you?
Yeah, that was a great question. So we're working on expansion currently. We're set to go Midwest soon, which is very exciting.
Yes.
We're launching an additional line of kombucha. It's going to be a hard kombucha as well.
Okay.
And so we're growing the business in that front. Personally, my next front is also to enjoy a little bit more work-life balance.
Oh gosh, aren't we all?
Yeah, work in progress. As someone who's bootstrapped from day one, it's time.
Yeah.
You know, the business is successful. I need to start prioritizing myself, just as much as I prioritize everyone else.
Yes.
And so that's on my personal agenda as well.
Good for you. Yeah, I agree, because it took me a while, and I did it as a single mom too. I started my business and I've been a single mom for most of the 7 years that I've had my business. And, now my son just turned 16 and he's off on his own. And I'm like, but I just needed the little bit of time I got with you.
Right.
Even in the car going to school. But yeah, so it's tough. You want to do it now, don't wait. Because I definitely did the same thing. And I'm sure you did the same thing where, in the beginning, when you're bootstrapping your business, you're the bookkeeper, you're the recruiter, you're the salesperson,
Everything.
You're the CEO, You're the janitor, you're all of it. Right. And so there is no time for downtime in those first initial couple of years. It's a challenge, but yeah, finding the balance and stepping away it's a good goal. It's a good goal. So what do you wish more people knew?
What do I wish more people knew? I wish that more people knew what it felt like to feel good.
Oh, yeah.
I think so many people, from a health and wellness standpoint, exist in a form of discomfort on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Most people don't know what it feels like to feel good.
Yeah.
And so I invite people to take a step back and to evaluate where they're at mentally, physically, emotionally, do a body scan, check in with yourself, and take one thing for yourself to improve on each day so that you can get to a place of comfort. Most people are so okay living in discomfort that they will never truly know what it feels like to feel good.
Oh, yes. Gosh, that's powerful. That's really powerful.
I hope so.
Yeah, because I think we all just kind of exist in this mindless space of, oh, that ache, that pain, that, bloating, this, that, the other, and your health conditions deteriorate and you just keep pushing through. And I think that's really powerful advice.
Yeah. How many times do you walk up to someone and they say, "How are you today?" "I feel great."
Yep.
How often do you hear that?
No.
Not very often.
No, it's, "I'm fine. I'm good. I'm all right."
Yeah. Hanging in there. That's a common one.
I'm making it.
Yep. No, you want to feel you as a human should feel good. Like,
yes,
what we're supposed to feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have really thoroughly enjoyed this, Courtney. Thank you so much for all of your time today. This has been a great conversation.
No, this has been a treat. I greatly appreciate your time, Angela, and so great to get to know you and your business as well.
Yeah, well, and I just wish you all the best in what you're doing. I think, just focusing on how to make people healthy and well, and, putting their pieces back together, helping them to find that balance in their life, at least when it comes to nutrition, is just, it's a great avenue. I love it. I love it. So thank you so much. So I appreciate Courtney being my guest today. This is the end of the Pretty Powerful Podcast episode. If you want to learn more about Courtney, please visit prettypowerfulpodcast.com, and you can see all of her links and check out her kombucha. And if you are in the Michigan area, please stop by. What is the grocery store that you're in?
We're in about 400 different local retailers. So if you head to our website, we're all listed there.
Very, very cool. Well, that's exciting. All right. Well, thank you so much, Courtney, again. And I hope everyone has an absolutely amazing day.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful Podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time. And until then, step into your own power.